Hi everyone, this is Brendan Washer doing my interactive blog post for Digital Humanities. So, as a game designer, I figured what better to show something than play a game. This is not a game I made, it is by Nikki Case. And we have a link up here in case.itch.io/WBWWB, which stands for We Become What We Behold. It's a short game, and if you want to skip my playthrough of it and play it for your own first, I highly recommend it, because I will be talking over it. It's not a very narrative-based game. It's more of a visual and like reading sort of thing, so you don't really need to like hear the game to understand it. But I'd still highly recommend playing through it yourself before watching this, so you get the feel for yourself. And the game is about violence in media, influence over the media, and going off my last interactive blog post, more moral panic. And should be warned that, as you can see here, it talks about mass murder. So if you have a trigger involving violence, please be aware of that. So without further ado, let us begin. So the game starts out with a very innocent sort of feel. You have something that looks like a camera and a bunch of people moving along. So let's take a picture of some people. And as you can see, we have this sort of hashtag, but it's broken, implying that it's not something that really is very trend-worthy. So we should find something that we think would be more trend-worthy. Probably this guy and a hat, since he's separate. So now we begin seeing the influence of people. So they see, oh, a hat is trending. Alright, I'm going to start wearing a hat. So let's take a picture of someone else in the hat. And then we start seeing the shame coming out. People being shamed that, hey, hats are no longer cool. And then they see that, and then they, lost my train of thought for a second. So as you can see, we have two interesting sort of groups here. We have this happy couple and this yelling person. I was trying to take a picture of the happy people. They kind of went off screen. Let's see if I can get them here. And again, we see more people being shamed from the media there, and then they retreat. So now we are left with this angry person. So everyone else kind of just blends in, so probably take a picture of this person yelling. That'll probably get us trending, right? And so now we have someone who's fearful of squares because he sees in the media this square yelling. And you can already probably tell the sort of things being portrayed by squares and circles being different races. So let's follow this scared person. And now we see that circles fear squares, which someone will see and then be annoyed at. And we just continue feeding this cycle. And there you can see this nice couple and the angry person originally. And so let's take a picture of that because he's better. But as you can see, it doesn't trend, showing that there's really no redemption. Once you've been labeled as a hateful, angry person, there is no redemption even if you do change. Sorry, I lost my train of thought again. As a person that grew up kind of separate from many different groups of people, I really connect with this game because I didn't know that much about different types of people until I was able to get access to the internet, like, reliably, and meet friends from the groups of people that I had originally not been so nice about. And it really changed my perspective on life and about people in general and basically everything. And I'm a completely different person than what I used to be. But if I had acted the way I originally had before I was online, when I got online, I would probably be labeled as a hateful, angry person. And even if I'm like this now, there is no redemption. Once you make one mistake, you're labeled as a problematic person, basically forever. So, getting back to the game, we see we have this angry person who sees a square and yells at them. And see, now we have this trending, and we go from one mad person to one fearful person to one snobbish person, then to one angry person again. And now there's 5 angry people, showing even something that's not common. When other people see that, they believe it is common, and then that makes them angry, fearful, whatever it is, and then it further spreads the hate. And again, continuing to spread the hate until almost everyone is angry and yelling at each other. And here we have this nice protest. Remember these people saying, hey, everyone should like each other and get along, so maybe we should showcase that. But that doesn't get as popular as the violence does. So if it's popular, we should spread it then, huh, right? And I missed it, because I am bad at games. I think with all these angry people, it'd be very easy for me to catch something. So let's spread a little bit more hate. Until basically everyone is angry. Now here's your last warning. If you have a violence trigger, please be aware of what is to come. So then this violence starts spreading, telling people to be scared and be angry. When people see this, they further become scared or angry, which in turn makes more people scared and angry. And this is one of my favorite shots of the game, is that it zooms out and you notice that you're on a laptop, and that we're partially responsible for this. We're the one that's helping spread this fear and anger and hatred. So, as you can see, I hope you see how this game relates to things we've discussed about in class, involving the media and angry people and fearful people. And of course, the cycle will continue. this is a little bit separate, but something I just kind of want to. This is completely separate from what I'm talking about, but I kind of want to talk about it from a design point of view. That the thing that you really want the player to do is to help. Like, since this game is free, which I don't know if I mentioned, the game is free to play, and a main source of income for indie developers such as this is donations. That the last thing you end on, that you would want to end on, is taking a picture of that center screen. And so after you click that center screen, the thing that comes up from where your mouse is it's right over this Buy Me a Coffee. That is a brilliant game design thing, and I can really appreciate that. Again, it has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but I noticed it, and I was like, that is very well thought out. Anyway, talking about external sources besides the game, you may have noticed my tabs up here. So, Alex Jones, what do you think? If you know about him, you would know he is a very angry and hateful person that very much all he does is spread fear and anger. And of course, the people that listen to him will then in turn continue to create fear and anger. I saw this this news article the other day, and this is something that's difficult for me to think about, because on one hand, it's very important to stay up to date on these sort of things, because this is a huge deal. This is a very big news article. But when you start blaming people and saying why, it can then in turn put more hate. So we see this article and we're not sympathetic immediately for these people. Instead, we see blame Facebook and spreading hate. And so the first thing that we are led to do is hate Facebook. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong for you to hate a social platform. I'm just saying that what if this was about a person? If you saw blame X for spreading hate, you would immediately hate that person. You would be angry with that person. And again, once that happens, that person has no redemption. And there's... I lost my train of thought again. But, and then there's this article from the Irish Examiner talking about freedom and hate. And it's also very relevant because there is a very fine line between freedom and being able to have hate speech. Because when you have unlimited freedom, you have the right to hate speech, which in turn creates more anger, more fear, and more hatred. But if you censor someone's right to hate speech, that person then becomes even more angry and has even more hatred, which they will spread through other means, not necessarily online. And then in turn make more people more angry and filled with more hate. And it's sort of a damned if you do, damned if you don't thing. But as I like to point out, well, before I get to that, there's also this film theory video that, if you have the moment, I would take a look at. The short summary of it is basically this. This Tide Pod Challenge thing that became popular not too long ago wasn't a really popular thing when YouTubers and like other people mentioned it when the first sort of things happened about it. But when normal media caught wind of it and started making videos about it, that's when the big escalation of Tide Pod challenges actually started happening. Just showing the influence that media still has over people that even something that's small and seems insignificant at the time, when media catches it, even if they're not trying to, when they shine a light on it, that in turn shows it to more people, maybe even much larger than what it originally was, and makes them, the people that see that, try these sort of things. Or, as we saw in the game, there was only a couple angry people to begin with, but when you took a picture of it and media broadcasted it, that made so many more people angry about it. Here's a couple articles from things that we've read. This one talking about algorithms and harmful speech. And then the future of trolls in social media. And I think it's interesting to read. So basically saying that trolls have been around since the dawn of time, and they'll always be there. And I believe that's true, but I also believe that the number can be controlled if we don't feed the trolls, which whenever they post something hateful or angry, that we don't give in to that, and we just instead in turn show love instead of hate and anger. For something a little bit nicer, showing that the world isn't a doom and gloom place, I have this Twitter account, We Rate Dogs, which has almost 6.75 million of followers, and I think this just showcases how wonderful a place the world can actually be if we step back from the mass shooting articles, the pro-Trump, anti-Trump articles. If we just step back from all of that and just look at this nice, innocent Twitter account, we can see that the world isn't as bad of a place as media likes to make it out to be. Because when we look at like I said, it's important to stay informed, but when all you do is read articles about the latest mass shooting, people hating each other, and that sort of thing, you in turn become fearful and angry, and you think the world is just a bad place, but it's not when you take a step back and look at it. The world is still here. It'll still be there tomorrow. It's a nice place, and it's full of wonderful things, but we're just so bogged down in the violence and things that we see that even if those things aren't the mainstream sort of thing, like, you don't walk outside and bombs aren't falling from the sky. 50% of the people aren't dying every single day. Most people are living nice, happy, normal lives. And we need to think about that sometimes when we see these hatred articles. I'm not saying ignore them. Don't ignore them at all. It's important to stay informed. But at the same time, if you get to the point where you're thinking about yelling at someone, if you're thinking about exciting violence on someone, that's when you need to take a step back and look at the world and say, hey, everything's not as bad as what the media is portraying it to be. I want to conclude on this Martin Luther King Jr. quote: "The ultimate weakness of violence is that it is a descending spiral, begetting the very thing it seeks to destroy. Instead of diminishing evil, it multiplies it. Through violence you may murder the liar, but you cannot murder the lie, nor establish the truth. Through violence you may murder the hater, but you do not murder the hate. In fact, violence merely increases hate. So it goes. Returning violence to violence multiplies violence, adding deeper darkness to a night already devoid of stars. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And so, I want you to think about that as through the rest of the semester, maybe just today, hopefully the rest of your lives, that when you see hateful things, responding with hate, it doesn't solve anything. It just makes things worse. I know it may make you feel better, potentially, but you're just further spreading the hate by doing that. And it's important to show people love when you can, and just continue to help make this world a better place. Because just like hate spreads hate, love spreads love. And I think that's something the world always needs more of. But yeah, this concludes my interactive blog post. I hope you found some of this stuff interesting, helpful, and hopefully it made your outlook on life maybe not so bleak. See that the world isn't just hateful, and that instead of being angry, we should be happy and spread love more. Thanks.